right, you hear that music? Sharp-dressed guys, weather-wise guys, well, sort of wise geoscience guys. You know who's joining us is an actual wise guy? That's what we call it this. You know, the guests we bring on are wise, and so we, by proxy, try to become wise. I'm meteorologist Carson Chickvara. That's Wes Peary in Kansas City. And who's this guy?
Isn't that your brother?
Yeah. Is that him? Are we related? Carson Chickvara? Yeah, I think we're related to some extent. My brother Carson, he's a mechanical engineer, last I checked. And he lives over in Greenwood, Mississippi. He's going to talk to us about temperature and engines and actually a lot of practical life stuff, I think, that a lot of people wouldn't think about that weather could impact here.
Do you not want him to claim Winona?
Well, I was because I'm pretty sure his office is Greenwood and then he's Winona. Okay. So I didn't know which one he wanted to claim. You know, it could be depending on the week. You know, I'm not sure.
I claim Winona.
Okay.
Greenwood is, you are correct. I do work in Greenwood. So I work in the Delta, east side of the Delta. But I do live in Winona.
I got a buddy that lives in Cleveland, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Delta.
Yeah, over there, Grammy Museum, Delta State.
Yeah.
They've got a world-ranked pizza restaurant over there, I'm pretty sure. I haven't been to it, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
What's the name of it? New York
Times. No clue. I haven't been to it. I think it
No
starts with an L.
Pizza. Okay,
Well, yeah. Good luck with that.
We're going to have to get our best guys on this research team because I would drive, partway across the country for a good slice. All about some pizza.
Portnoy just came to Kansas City and did a review of like 3 different places, and he gave one of them an 8.2, which I understand is a pretty high score for that guy, and so I will be going to that pizza joint because I think historically Kansas City does not do well with pizza.
Barbecue, though.
Yeah, barbecue and tacos. That's about it.
Okay.
Just did a quick Google search. It's called Lena Pizza and Bagels.
Polina?
Like you're going to be Lena after you eat it?
Oh, yeah. That's right. Lena. I believe that is the joint.
Huh.
All right, I'm looking it up.
Interesting.
Polina Pizza and Bagels. Thank you very much for that. I'm gonna ask my buddy about it and see what the review is. He's actually a giant pizza guy himself, so he's probably been there a dozen times.
Wait, see, we're already learning stuff. We haven't even gotten to weather or anything of even remote, content of this show, and I feel like I've already learned something. Why didn't we go there? How far is Cleveland from Winona when I visited you?
It's a healthy ways. I'd say maybe 2 hours because you have to go west. You have to go northwest. But it's a nice little town.
You know what's weird? Is that my buddy's wife, her name is Lena. But it's 2 E's instead of 1 E. So that's beside the fact. Sorry.
All right, here we go. Quick wiki readout. We can move on. Lena Pizza and Bagels is a restaurant in Cleveland, Mississippi. It was included in the New York Times 2024 list of the 22 best pizzerias in the U.S.
It looks good.
That's pretty solid.
I'd say so. There's a lot of good pizza joints out there.
I wonder what makes pizza good. So I know the pizza places here, they swear by this triple cold filtered water that they use when they're making the dough, that it's a really crisp, clean water. And so it makes the dough rise different and it gives it this really good crust. I have no clue. I mean, I've never really made anything remotely more than like one of those take home pizza kits from Walmart. Mm-hmm. But, it's interesting. So. Tour de pizza. That might need to be we do a, what's the best pizza poll question and see what people say. What state owns pizza? New York? Chicago?
That's our Jersey or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. My accents are terrible unless it's British.
You just have tea and crumpets. The British.
All right, before we lose any more viewers, let's get on with it. All right, so, me and Wes, we always talk weather, right? But we also like to try to connect it to daily lives and current events. And it's getting cold. Here in Birmingham, we've already had one record low. Our highs the last several days have been in the 40s. Wes is in Kansas City, and he's even colder.
Yeah. It was 10 here this morning. 10.
So, Carson, we understand like how things work as far as the atmosphere and the thermodynamic part of that, but you study more of the thermodynamics in engines and the performance of those. So what is just off? I'll let you take it away as far as things maybe people should know or how machines work, or share your expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few different ones that we can hit on, but the first thing for me, just because it was something that I grew up with and I thought it was a thing, was warming up the car. I feel like a lot of people on a cold morning, they feel that they have to warm up their vehicle so that the oil is lubricating everything. They maybe want it really warm inside of the cabin of the vehicle. And what will actually happen when you sit there and you let your car idle for a long period of time, especially when the engine is cold, is your fuel injectors, typically when you fire off a cold car, they're going to spray more fuel controlled by the engine control or engine computer. It's going to spray more fuel in there because that fuel is going to condense on the cylinder wall and the top of the piston. So you can think of like if the moisture inside of your house, the humidity inside of your house is high, but it's really cold outside, you're going to have moisture that condenses on the window on the inside, right? If it's like a single pane piece of glass. That's a similar thing that happens when you fire off a cold car. This fuel is condensing on the outer cylinder wall, and so that's inherently why more fuel gets sprayed in there. Well, what will happen is when that fuel gets sprayed in, it will start to move down the cylinder walls. It will bypass the piston rings, and it will then go down into the engine oil. This isn't a ton, and it's not like you let your car warm up one time and now you have all this fuel that's in your oil and it's ruined. But if you do it consistently and you have this gas in your oil, it degrades the oil and you lose the lubricating properties that the oil has when it's brand new. And so that's probably one of the ones that I always thought growing up, Sunday morning, hey, go fire up the car and warm it up before we head to church, and you let it sit there for 10 minutes and it's great. It's all cozy on the inside, but it's more efficient to get into the car after maybe 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds for it to warm up, and you get the station all set on your radio, and then head off gingerly. Don't floor it. You don't need to put a lot of stress on the internal components, but when you pull off gingerly, the oil is going to be lubricating just fine, and you're not going to sit there and wait for the engine to warm up via idle.
That's a great busted myth.
That's the first one.
That's I still to this day I'll warm up my car before leaving, because I assume that once we talk about in thermodynamics things can move more efficiently, or an engine can be more efficient if there's a bigger difference in temperature, right, between cold and warm. So I always assumed if the engine's warm and it's really cold outside, that change in temperature between the engine and the air outside, that maybe it'd be working more efficiently. But clearly missing the finer points on that.
Yeah, that's something that obviously Evan and I attended the majority of the same classes together. But what I had gathered from that was that generally the colder it is outside, the more efficient your engine can be, because of adiabatic or the diabatic compression of your pistons. That temperature difference between the two causes it to run more efficiently. Is that accurate, Carson?
I think to some degree. I don't know if you're going to notice a vast difference in the efficiency that your engine operates, or I think most of us would just say fuel economy, right? So if your vehicle normally gets 30 miles per gallon, I don't know if you'd necessarily see a 10% increase in colder weather than you would in warmer weather, but I do think that it would help. I did attempt to see how fuel efficient my vehicle could possibly be in comparison to the manufacturer's specs. And so I believe it was January or February back in 2023. I drove my Forerunner. Yeah, it's on YouTube somewhere, but I drove my Forerunner to Olive Branch, Mississippi. I left at like 4 o'clock in the morning from Birmingham, and it was super cold outside. It was sub freezing temperature, and my thought was I would in fact get better fuel economy if I drove early in the morning with that dense cold air. And I did in fact get better fuel economy. I think it was around like 22.3, which was higher than, I think is maybe about like 8% higher than what Toyota called out on their MPGs. Mind you, I also overinflated my tires, so there's less friction from the road, and I removed all of the seats except for the driver's seat out, which
I was just say like legit experiment. You're not just like, hey, well, I'm driving back across the Southeast. Let me just for fun see if there's any efficiency difference here.
No, yeah, I took it a couple steps further. I didn't go all the way out and build like an aero kit to put on my car, but I did take a couple of additional steps.
Yeah, that's why. So this is Carson's page, and I just wanted to put this up there for anybody. There are so many good things on here, even outside of weather, where you can just go on there and learn. He showed me how to change the oil, and I got a 2018, 2019 Toyota Camry, and simple step by step, but it's stuff like that. He has tested out the MPGs. Didn't you one time, Carson, drive all the way from Atlanta to Mississippi when it was hot and you used no AC and put the windows down? Was that a different time to see if it was more efficient for the... Yeah, that's another good myth. Is it better to have the windows down and have that kind of air resistance added, or run the AC and put a little more strain on the engine?
That is a good question, and definitely worth the experiment. When you look at fuel economy, you are better off having a smaller frontal area. So the front of your car, having a smaller frontal area than reducing weight out of the vehicle. I think I weighed it, and it was about 170 pounds worth of seats that I took out, which is essentially a human being, right? That probably had negligible impact on the MPGs. But if I would have had maybe a more slippery, more aerodynamic vehicle, it would have made vast improvements as that air flows over the car and there's less turbulent air that's forming behind it, causing that drag. Like think of a big tour bus or something like that has just a front flat, it's just a wedge, just or a block plowing through air on the road. Very fuel inefficient. But you look at like a Tesla Model S and very slippery design. Air just kind of moves around the car, and it makes it much more efficient on charge. So I'd be curious if the air coming in the car creates too much turbulence to where it makes it more effective to just run the AC. Some cars, they do have a window that goes down in the back, and it would help to streamline that air all the way through the vehicle. So maybe that would help as well. But you could probably do different stints along the way and see.
You mentioned Tesla. When it comes to like batteries, what type of weather strains electrical power the most, cold or hot?
Good one.
I have not looked at the data, but I would say cold, because these battery packs, and I'm no aficionado or know a whole lot about electrical vehicles. I do have some base knowledge, but those battery packs are not going to work as efficient. They usually work most efficient around 70 degrees, where those chemical reactions inside the batteries are very efficient. But I like to think of it as, when you go outside in the winter and it's cold and you try and move your hands like this, and your hands are just like super slow when you move them, that is how the ions in these battery packs move when it's cold. And so they have to generate heat in the battery packs in order to operate efficiently. And this therefore reduces their overall capacity or range. You'll also have in the winter time, this isn't maybe directly related to the battery's function, but overall range is decreased because people inside the car don't want to be freezing cold. So they might have the heated seats on, they might have heat coming out, and all of that is also going to impact the vehicle's overall range.
That's a good one. Yeah, good question, Wes. I'd wondered about the batteries because, I've got this little tiny leaf blower, but it's a battery, and I was trying to blow the yard the other day before putting up Christmas decorations, and I swear it kept dying a lot faster. It's maybe a year and a half old, but that was what I was going to ask you: is the lithium battery does the cold air, affect that at all? Which I could be wrong, could need a new battery, but with the EV cars, that takes it to a bigger level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's what makes people so skeptic of having an electric vehicle, especially in northern states like West. I don't know how many Rivians or Teslas or EV cars that you have driving around. But talking with people, they would never want to drive one if they lived in a northern state because you don't know. You get in the vehicle and you thought your charge was 250, and then you get in and it's actually 180. That's a drastic percentage decrease. And if you're just doing your daily commute, maybe it's not that big of a deal. But if you're driving over to the in-laws or going on vacation and you're leaving from somewhere like Detroit, Michigan, that's 70 miles. That's a lot of added time, and you're now going to have to spend charging somewhere.
Interesting. That's Carson Chickvara, engineer from Milwaukee, West Peary. Carson, this is a big one for me, and I do every time it gets cold out, I remind people of this. Now, I don't know the exact science, if these numbers are right. I know this, and Wes and I, this was buried into our heads, and anyone who's done physics or thermodynamics knows the relationship between temperature and pressure, and as temperature drops, so does the pressure. So you have that air that was in your tire when it was 60, 70 degrees and pushing against the walls of the tire, when it drops, the air is compressed. It takes up less space, so your pressure goes down. And what will happen is a lot of folks will start their cars and they'll think that they've got a low tire, or they'll think that they have a nail in the tire. And there's almost always, as soon as we drop into the 40s here in Alabama, it's almost always a widespread issue, especially for people who park outside. What do you know or recommend about this?
Yeah, so I know you and I were kind of talking a little bit beforehand that every roughly 10 degrees that temperature drops, your tires are going to drop by about 1 to 2 psi. And it maybe also depends on what gas, so to speak, you have in your tires. So nitrogen is going to react differently than, say, air that's coming out of an air compressor that you have. And you won't lose as much air pressure if you have nitrogen in the tires. What's interesting, though, and you mentioned kind of the formula, is this P1 T1 over P2 T2. So this is Gay-Lussac's law, where as that pressure, we'll say the temperature in this instance, as it goes down, your pressure is also going to go down as well. Well, what will happen is you can fill up your tires or you can not fill up your tires. And as you drive along, the pressure is going to increase in your tires nonetheless, because the temperature inside of your tires is starting to warm up due to the friction of your wheels rotating on the road. It's actually really cool if you drive a newer vehicle where you can look at the live tire pressure in all four of your wheels. When you drive in really cold temperatures, you might get in and they read 29. So they dipped maybe 3 psi. By the time that you've driven 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the temperature in those tires is kind of warmed up, like a NASCAR driver zipping all over the track. You start to see the tire pressure increase because it's a proportional relationship with the temperature. So it's actually really fascinating. And before hopping on here, about a week ago, I actually did the calculation because I was curious as to what would happen, and because we never did this in school, but I was like, this is practical calculations that you can do, and it works out at least in the calculation, and you can see it practice in real life too.
Oh man, you brought me back. Even the Gay-Lussac's law, Boyle's law, Charles' law. I had to Google it. I would Google it. I was like, what is this again? I'm like, oh yeah, I learned all these like 15 years ago, 10, 15 years
Yeah.
ago.
These
I had to
form
look it up too because I was like, I know that this is a thing. I don't
Yeah.
remember what guy was named after it, or if it was a derivation from some other formula, but I know it's a thing.
These are all like processes or like relations that like us three we all know. It's just like, oh yeah, it was this formula that like
it's
helped us learn.
I love the
Yeah.
application of it though, because for the life of me, when we're learning these formulas, all I'm trying to remember is if there's a constant in there, like a natural number, or a consistent. Like in the atmosphere, we had to use a specific value for pressure to define the drop and the consistent whatever. And you're so busy focused on that number in the analytics when you can apply it exactly like this is a perfect application of it. Seeing how that cold air affects something versus the warm air. So on the flip side, Carson, if it's summertime, and I guess go over kind of like what you'd recommend, because all four of my tires this morning read 28 and were low. By the time I got to work, three of them were 30 and one was 29. So it warmed up, but I was still below. Is there like a danger in underinflating in the summer, or overinflating when it's cold?
Yeah, when you come to tire wear, I would say overinflating is probably more dangerous. And the reason why is you're having less contact with the road surface. So if it starts to rain or there's snow, you have less traction, so you have less control over your vehicle. When you air down your tires, you're typically going to have more rolling resistance. You're going to have, you can say, more contact area touching the road. In both instances, you're going to see premature tire wear, which is not good for the wallet. And you could say if you're underinflated, it's also bad MPGs as well. So I try and keep my tires always at the OEM spec of about 35 psi for my vehicle. It's different for other cars because they have different tires and different ratings. But that's typically what I set it at, and then I just keep an air compressor in my car, a little battery powered one, so that way if I do walk outside in the morning, I can fill it up, or if I see somebody else who has low tires, help them out too.
No, this chart is great. I've never seen this chart before, but I'm going to post this on Facebook and make $4 from the reactions and content money I'll get. So thank you very much for showing this to me, Evan.
Yeah, I grabbed this because I was curious. I didn't want to, there's a lot of stuff that Wes and I have talked about over the weeks that weather has an overlap, but we don't necessarily know the exact, and you just gave a much better perspective on it. With respect to heat, I know we're in our cold season. One of the reasons we brought you on. Can heat stress impact an engine? Is there any specific type of engine? I know, on your YouTube page, your background here is a Plymouth Valiant, correct? And this was a slant 6 engine. Is there a type of engine in a certain temperature, maybe warm, that works more efficiently because of how it's made, structured? It might be two questions rather than one, but I'm just curious the evolution of engines with efficiency.
Yeah, so are you asking, is it just more efficient when it's warm? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. So number one, I guess the efficiency when it's warm out, or when it gets really hot, what's the impact? And then part two would be, you know, engines have evolved over time. That was a slant 6 that you put together, which you can explain that, and then what the structure of an engine is now to make things more efficient with a vehicle versus 9 MPGs.
Yeah, so vehicle engines are designed to operate around, this 70-degree mark, right? When you start getting to these extreme temperatures, we'll say 100 plus degrees, that's where you're going to see more strain that actually occurs on the engine. The cooling system is not necessarily designed to operate and cool the engine when you're sitting at 110, 120 degrees outside. I'm thinking of driving through like Arizona, right? In the dead of summer when it's just super hot. Your engine may potentially overheat because the cooling system, so your radiator is flowing that coolant through the water jacket inside of your engine, just cannot keep up with the amount of, we'll call it stress that you're putting on the engine. Now, vehicles have evolved over time. There's a lot of computers inside of cars, and they'll flash and give you warnings that your engine temp is increasing. At the same time, we also put a lot more stress on our engines because there's a lot more systems that are operating inside of a vehicle in comparison to what you pointed out here with a 60s car. It's not running enough power or it's not running the alternator to put out power for a massive touchscreen display. It's not pumping heat to the back seats. It doesn't have all these little sensors that it's also trying to power as well. It's very simplistic in the sense that the engine is just transmitting power down to a transmission through a drive shaft to some back wheels. Very simple system. So we've come a long way, and I wouldn't say that engines nowadays are by any means worse than they used to be. There's just a lot more functionality with them. We get a lot more out of them than we previously did. I'll share one more because without fail, every year I feel like there's a video that surfaces of somebody who thinks it's a grand idea to take boiling water or hot water and throw it on their windshield to defrost it. And they always end up shattering their windshield. And I'm sure you guys could probably speak on this in even more detail than me. And so you guys correct me if I'm wrong here. You have this hot liquid that is now touching this cold surface, and it is trying to expand the material or expand the glass, where on the inside of the car, it's really cold, and that glass, which is layered, all windshields are layered, where you have glass, a plastic glass, multiple different layers. It's not able to keep up with the rapid expansion of the outside facing glass, and so it just ends up shattering because there's too much stress inside of the windshield. I always find that to be funny. Do you guys have any comments on that, or can add any additional information that kind of clears that up for people? That's my take on how it happens.
I didn't know that windshields were layered. So
I didn't either.
I
That was great.
don't know if I can add anything to that, dude. Like, I don't even know how the windshield was constructed in the first place.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's from a safety standpoint. So they do that so that it won't all shatter and like crumble in on you. Like when you see something that goes or through a windshield or somebody hits it with a baseball bat, it's just like spider webs, and it's because it's a layered windshield. So you have the glass and then the plastic and then glass again.
That's great. Now that you say that, I can picture, when you see these accidents or when something's gone through a windshield. We had it with a 2x4 on the interstate, went through somebody's windshield. They were okay. But instead of the whole thing cracking, it was like this one hole and then it just spiderwebbed out. And so that's because there's layers. It makes it, pliable?
Yeah. And again, so that if something like that happens, with like a normal house window, the whole thing's just going to crumble in, right? And you don't want that to happen with a vehicle. But when you add that layer of plastic in, it gives it a little bit more flexibility to where it's not necessarily going to shatter. It also binds everything together.
That's really good stuff. I find it funny every year. I'm sorry when people do it and they think that you can't try to change phase in water that quickly. The expansion, the behavior of the molecules, like you said, the specific heat of both of those, of water versus the glass, are not the same. So they're not going to heat up and transition the same. Um, if you've ever wondered in the northern states, they have concrete, and if you ever look, especially over bridges, you're going to notice there's decent seams, right, in between the poured slabs of concrete. And very similar to what you're saying, the heat causes those areas to expand in the summer and then contract in the winter when it's colder. And to save the stress on bridges, they build in a very specific, which I don't know what the dimensions are, but a gap between them to make sure that they don't expand and crumble into each other or, retract and cause bigger gaps that can be, more dangerous. If you go out to the Grand Canyon, there's a huge clear glass walking platform that you walk out onto and you can look down into the canyon. Well, we went in the spring when it wasn't super cold or super hot, but the panes of the glass had about a quarter inch in between each one, enough to make a lot of people pause. But the guy said, it gets so hot here in the triple digits in the summer, you have to account for that massive expansion. But then also, out there in the canyon, the major thermal differences, because you have the change in height, and you'll have really, really strong thermals of sinking air. You have to account for a really wide range, and it was bizarre. It was kind of scary, but if it didn't have that gap, they would buckle and crack with those crazy changes. So that's all I had to add to that, because I think that's cool from a engineering perspective.
Yeah, that's definitely
I
a
had a lot of
similar
friends who are engineers.
scenario.
I think engineers and
I know
meteorologists are
that's
like very close to each other overall. Like we all kind of took the same classes, especially the same like basic classes. It's just we split off to our respective majors. Like I would see, my engineering buddies in the same like math and science classes as me, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm literally like I do the same thing, just in the sky, and you do stuff on the
Yeah,
ground with engines and everything
and
like that." So like all of us could to some extent do each other's jobs. But
that's
I
why I
can
want
never change oil. I can't do that.
actually go watch
100%
the
you can.
video.
100%.
His stuff, and for everyone who's watching, if you're visually seeing this on YouTube, this is an awesome channel. It's a lot of simple. It's like if you've ever looked up how to change. Last week I had a problem with my dishwasher filter. Okay, look up how to change dishwasher filter in Frigidaire. That's kind of what he does with vehicles and stuff. And just if you want to learn something, but yeah, our backgrounds are similar. And I remember, I think it was his sophomore junior year, Wes. He was telling me what. I don't know, were you in DE or some sort of dynamics? And I was like, man, you're already at the same level as I was after graduating. It's the same processes, but you take it to a different application.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
I like your transmission flush video because the transmission shops will charge you an insane amount to
Insane to
flush your
rebuild.
transmission, and it's like,
You have to be careful with that. And I did a lot of research to make sure I wasn't going to screw up my transmission when I
uh,
did it. Because they are going to use some sort of machine that's pumping out the old fluid while new fluid's pumping in. So I was like, well, I'm
mhm.
not going to buy that. But I also don't want to do it wrong. And then you also have like material that, or I don't want to say like dirt, but you have like clutch material inside of your automatic transmission that helps the plates like press against one another so you can shift through the gears. And if you flush all of that out, your transmission can actually slip. So in that video, I actually went and put old fluid back in that had some of that, we'll say clutch material, to help with shifting. And I can say that this car still shifts through all the gears just as it did, if not better. So that's good.
I'm glad it's still running. That's good. That's building credibility right there.
Yeah, 100%.
Any other
Wes,
myth?
you could 100% change your own oil.
Yeah,
Yes, you could.
I know I could,
You could.
but
It does. I was talking with somebody recently, and they were like, I can change my own oil, but I don't enjoy doing it, and I do not mind paying somebody else to do it. And I was like, that's fair. Like if you don't mind paying somebody else and you want to talk on the phone or read a book while somebody else changes it and you want to pay the 75, $80, whatever, however much an oil change costs these days, like you spend your money on that. I probably spend my money on stuff that people are like, well, that's ridiculous. So everybody's own preference.
Time I just take it up to Walmart and they do it. They do it for me. We call it good.
Okay, I will say there is one caveat to that. In when I change my oil, I know that it's done properly. No knocks on Walmart, but I've heard horror
No offense.
stories of people who lose their drain plug or it's not tightened in all the way, and so they're driving down the road, and then all of a sudden their engine's knocking because there's no oil left in it. So
Well, doesn't
just
that
keep
mean I'll
those
just get a
guys
free car?
honest. Maybe with
I
a
don't
headache
think.
included.
Oh, that's too funny, man. Any other myths that you got there, Carson? Or anything else that's just like,
No.
I guess, common sense? Because you touched on a lot of things. So you've definitely earned your wise tag here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll be looking for it in the mail.
We'll see. I think, do we have official pins yet? I know we talked
Need
about a
a
T-shirt. I really want to get one that says, wise guy and points to me, because I would love to wear that in Walmart. See what people say. But I was speaking of cars, Carson. When you said a better, more aerodynamic vehicle, I thought today, and it never fails. It's always a Kia Soul. Somebody in a Kia Soul cut me off, and I was like, "All right, this little go kart." I said, "I'm gonna have to share this on the episode." Is the size of the vehicle like height wise, or is it more the curvature of the vehicle that's important?
You know, good question. I would say it is more so the size of the vehicle, um, as opposed to say like the curvature of it. It really just depends. I know that answer kind of sucks,
No, I'm
but
probably
it
asking a question where
always
you're splitting
just
hairs.
depends. Because like there's a lot of different factors involved. How high is it off the ground? Because you're going to have air flowing underneath the vehicle that's different than the air that's flowing around the vehicle. It's different than the air flowing over the vehicle. But it all kind of starts on the nose of it, right? If you can get that air to separate and then smoothly glide across the surface of the vehicle, that's going to give you the most efficient design possible. I'd actually be curious. And I think the MythBusters did something on this years ago where they made the exterior of the car dimpled like a golf ball, because golf balls have those dimples to help it actually travel further in the air. And so they dimpled the entire thing to see if it would have better fuel economy and have the air flow over it better. I don't know what the results were. Maybe that's something that I'll look up and follow back with you guys.
That's awesome. I didn't know that either, but there you go.
So I miss MythBusters. I will randomly run across their videos on like TikTok or something like that. And I'm like, oh man, I used to love that. And it's like now it's crazy like how much engineering goes into all those episodes. You're like, oh my gosh, like this is like you need a
So
team of
much.
people to do this. This is crazy.
That show was a true production. I loved watching it because they would just take all these oddball concepts and just like, yeah, let's give it a shot.
But I
Let's
love
try it out and see if it's legit.
the whole premise of it. Like, just okay, let's learn about this. It was a great structure because we didn't really know the answer. There were things like that we've talked about on this episode that were considered myths, and it was like, you know what? Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's drive a car, from Birmingham to Greenwood, with no AC, to rip all the seats out. Let's see what efficiency, because there's a lot of things, and we talk about this all the time, Wes and I. In our business, we like to learn. There's so many facets of it. You just provided a perfect example, the impacts of weather on machines. We've talked about, the studies of changes in temperature and weather patterns on tornadoes. There's so much to learn, and that's like the whole point of this. And MythBusters was awesome because it would take these things that we would hear all the time, or at least had heard before, and it would put it to the test. And we'd always learn something, or it would verify. It's just I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, I think another more maybe more common with the younger generation now, that does something similar is Mark Rober. You've seen like the glitter bomb videos or the stink bomb videos. or he made like a massive like little like baking soda and hydrogen peroxide volcano, and he does these fun engineering projects where he's also teaching his audience these various different principles and gets people excited and engaged in engineering, which is really really cool. Similar to MythBusters.
Interesting.
Today we learned do not throw boiling water on your windshield to get the snow and the ice off. Do not let your car idle when it's cold outside thinking it's going to help. Is there something else that I'm missing here? Don't go to Walmart for an oil change.
I think it was good learning about the tire pressure too, because that's
Yes.
one I've heard people will overinflate, and down here we can go almost every record I write down throughout each day that we have. The record high is almost always 80, 82 degrees, so we can get to 80, 70s easily any time of the year. So when people overinflated their tires when it dropped to 22, well, 4 days later it was 68. So I had that was one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you, Carson, because they had their inner tube didn't pop, but it expanded and it had like these stretch marks and a slow leak. So the tire was actually bulging. It was an odd shape because it was overinflated, probably a little more so than when it was cold. It was 37 psi when it was 22 degrees out, is what he filled it to.
Mm.
And then he kept it on that, and could have been poor quality of tire, but I thought, man, that has to be something to do with the huge change in temperature. So good stuff. Since we talked about our overlapping careers, I figured Carson would have no problem with this. We are going to forecast.
Winona?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll let him
Oh
pick.
boy.
Well, you can pick. We could do Greenwood or Winona, Carson. We're going to forecast the high, low, and then if there's any precipitation on this day, we'll forecast for December 7th. And
Okay.
we revisit this each week that we remember to do it. And yeah, we forget sometimes. But send out a reminder email after this. But high, low, and if you think there's going to be precipitation, a total, send it in, and we're going to do it for December 7th.
So I don't verbally say it now.
No, because Wes might
No.
steal it. He's very notorious.
Okay.
That's why he's winning this competition. So we've had two guests forecast against us, and Wes has beaten them both times. Not me.
And I'm
but
pretty
Wes.
sure both of them are like smarter than me.
Oh,
So.
certainly. Our guest in the summer, Grady, he's one of the smartest people in our business, and we totally put him on the spot because he researches. He's not following forecasting as often, but Wes took him down. Former professor of ours. Big deal.
So Wes, did you do your own research or did you just like shoot from the hip and nail it?
Oh no, I mean, I did like a little bit of model analysis where I'll like look at different models. I'll look at how they've performed the past couple of days, and then or just like model tendencies. Like, hey, if this model says it's gonna be this temperature, but then it's gonna rain, like okay, maybe it's gonna be a little cooler than that, like by a couple degrees. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of little just like tips and tricks and little things to
Okay.
look at.
I
But
was just gonna go with my gut feel of
That's
what I think Sunday's gonna bring.
And you know
yeah.
what? You might beat us with that. And if so, we might have to close down this podcast.
You can also just go to like weather.com. It's pretty good still. So you can just
No,
totally
no,
go
no,
there.
no. I can't cheat. I'm gonna
So
use my gut, my intuition.
smart. You got good intuition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll submit this. We'll revisit it, and maybe you can be the first guest that gets one. So I love this too. Wes knows, and we have several viewers that love Astronomy Minute. So this past week on December 4th, because by the time this airs, this obviously will be headed towards the middle of the month. But we had the final full moon. It was a super moon. Okay, we couldn't see it. It was raining here. So Wes, I don't know if you could see it. I know
When
me and
was it?
Carson. It was on December 4th. It came up at about, I think, 6:18
Okay.
Central Time, thereabouts. And of course, it was in perigee, which when you talk about orbiting, Earth's orbit around the sun is elliptic. So at one part of the year it's 93 million miles away, another part of the year it's 91 miles away, or 91 million miles away. So perigee and eperigee, those are the two. Perigee being the closest, and the moon, when it's a supermoon, it's slightly closer. So the moon appeared about 10% brighter, right around 8% larger as well. So the next one occurs in January. And my question to you off the cuff, if you have to rename any of these moons, how you would assess that month or something correlating, which one would you choose and what would the name be?
Carson, you go
Is
first.
this a question? This is a question to me.
Yeah.
I feel like, Wes, I need to hear your answer so that I don't sound too foolish.
Okay. I think January can be the moose moon. I don't know why it's the wolf moon. I know moose moon just sounds funny in general. I mean, the wolf moon could be literally any month here. There's like wolves don't hibernate, so I don't quite understand that one. But moose. I guess you could also make that argument that moose are around all the time. But I associate moose with cold weather more than wolves. So
To be
moose
fair to
moon for
Car-
January.
to be fair to Carson, I'll give some background. So each of these, sometimes there's more than one nickname, but each full moon was nicknamed by Native American tribes. Some of them go back to Europe, but they correlated the full moon that month with what was happening in their lifestyle. So the wolves in certain parts of North
Ah,
America, they were on the move in January. There was always the highest snow totals, or typically in February. By March, things are getting closer to blooming. You have worms that are coming to the surface and aerating the soils. Pink, uh, I believe that has to do with things are blooming. Flower, things are in bloom. A blue moon is when you have two full in 1 month. But each one has something to do with what they observed that time of year. So, Wes, I'm sure there was moose and caribou. You can file that and see if they'll change it.
The cold moon is still the dumbest one for me personally.
What? It's very
But yeah,
self-explanatory, straightforward. Man, why are you so grumpy?
when I think of the one that I was going to change was cold, because I agree that one's just kind of silly. When I feel like the moon is the biggest when it is cold outside, though, and maybe there is some scientific fact there. But I was going to say you could change it from cold to the mega moon, because that just sounds kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
The mega moon. Don't know if there's any truth to that or not, but that'd be kind of cool.
Actually, Wes, we did what was it, about 2 months ago? We did one
Evan's
on,
the guy.
the cold air. So depending on the temperature of the atmosphere, the thickness of the atmosphere, things will look different in size. And that's why you'll see these changes in, when the sun is sinking, it's coming through more layers of the atmosphere. There's more scattering. It's going to look bigger. So oftentimes the cold, crisp air, there's less to look through because the atmosphere, cold air sinks. So all those particulates, the pollution in the atmosphere sinks to the ground. You're not having to look through that, which can at times when there's water vapor and these pollutants, it'll distort your view. In the wintertime, you'll notice there's much, much more visible stars in the sky. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of it. The cold conditions, it changes your atmospheric profile behavior with less water. It doesn't impact. So that's a good point. I actually try to text Carson every now and then what percentage the moon is because him and his wife try to guess, and then I follow it. I write it on my forecast sheet every day.
I don't do very good with the guesses.
Guess the moon percentage today.
He texted me out of the blue, and he told me what him and his wife guessed the moon was. I think y'all were fairly close.
Yeah, maybe within 3 to
I'm
5%.
about to say it wasn't more than 10% off, but
Yeah.
I thought maybe the December or January could be the streaming moon or the binge watch season moon because like the weather we have now, I don't want to go outside. Lauren and I have been watching shows because it's 41 and raining. It's my least favorite type of weather because it's not cold enough to snow. it's just enough to really tick you off when you're going from the car to the building, because it's like the sky's spitting at you. It's a nuisance rain with ridiculous temperatures. So, or the crockpot moon. That was my other idea.
Crockpot.
The grilling moon for July.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. We can modernize this, and
We do the stretchy pants moon for either November or December.
probably December, because you start cultivating in November and it just keeps going into December. Stretchy pants. Oh,
I think, Evan has recently got onto Facebook monetization, and I think this would be a great post for you, Evan. Just be like, let's modernize the moon names, and then you give them all a name, and then you pose the question to people, what would you make the moons?
you know what? It's full moon. I'm going to have that up there tonight. In fact, here is our social media stuff. It's pretty easy. Wes Weather, you'll find him anywhere, and Beyond the Forecast is me. You can find that anywhere. And, I will say this is going to be covered in a future episode. We weren't going to make Carson be a part of this, but coming up, we're going to cut through some of the nonsense, misleading meteorology, and what social media has made people go rogue, even in our business, in putting out some nonsense and poor information, which is a huge, in fact, it's my biggest pet peeve in this business at the moment. So if you want some honest, good stuff, we may not be the most entertaining with obnoxious weather, but we're going to give you at least our straightforward answer. I'm wrong sometimes, but you can follow the Weather Wise guys there. You see it on your screen. Right, Wes? Who's more interesting on social?
Well, the people that we're going to call out, or not call out, talk about, are purposefully doing this. They're willfully misleading the people to make money off them. And so that's why we're going to start the segment. And if they see us calling them out, would be happy to engage with them
and have them on the show, because it's an issue. And Carson, for people like you, I know you reach out to me when there's severe weather. I try to reach out to you. A lot of the general public, doesn't get concerned until there's really inclement weather. In our job, at least how I see it, we're public service. Wes and I went to school together. We have the same sort of idea. Our job is to serve the people, and that's to give the most accurate information that we can, not hyperbolize a situation, not instill fear in something that's already scary to a lot of people. And that's become a big issue, where we're putting these scenarios out there, and it's causing people to have a false narrative about weather. And you do it too much. If I started to tell you every frontal boundary that comes through Greenwood is severe, it has a high severe potential, and nothing pans out, eventually it's going to come numb to you, and you're not going to react when it's important. And I think that's a road we're heading down, where there's more of a interest in getting attention and clicks and monetization than it is passing along useful, helpful information, which I believe is the really keystone, the main point of what we do. Soapbox, that's it.
Well, I'm proud of both of you boys for living in the Deep South. I know you're from Kennesaw, but I'm proud of both of you boys for not taking in a gigantic Southern accent. You both still sound slightly Southern, but not like deep Dixie type of accent.
We took voice and articulation together, Wes.
Carson didn't.
No, me and you.
Carson doesn't sound like he's from Winona.
That's true.
I will say that I probably say a couple things, maybe a little bit more, we'll say Southern, as most people would call it, since moving here.
Yeah.
But everybody that I'm around or that knows me just says that I'm from the city, and I'm not actually from the South. Atlanta is not the South. Most of them just say, oh, Carson's from Buckhead, which is 100% not the truth. But that's what they stereotype me with, because I'm so far removed from like the true South, according to them.
Okay, Buckhead is a league of its own. That place is, as ritzy gets.
Tell them you're from Bankhead. What do you tell them?
Oh man,
that was good stuff, man. I can't wait to first of all, see the forecast competition, but to hear kind of what people say, because this is, again, I go when I go to talk to second graders or when I go to talk to eighth graders, it's weather impacts everybody. You can think we're goofy as the weatherman, but at some point we all there's an impact to everybody. There's an impact to lifestyle, and that's what we hope to do is kind of, inform people, teach people, and then practical application. Like right here, Carson Chickvara, Milwaukee Tool. It's a great. It's a great company. I've got a couple of Milwaukee tools, and they are excellent.
Well, I'm happy that they're working for you.
If not, I'll know where to find you.
Absolutely. Send them my way. We'll get you squared away for sure.
Weather-wise, guys, the meteorologist Evan Chickvara in Birmingham. That is Wes Peary in Kansas City, and the special guest, my brother Carson Chickvara. Thanks for joining us, guys. See you next time.